Hey nerds, I'm Astratale, and the last 2 years have been an amazing time playing Astracraft. And 3 weeks ago, so I would say like almost a month. No, a little bit less than a month. Astracraft died, and obviously we all know that. But what I was not able to finish was a story that was made by tons of players. Tons of players were involved in creating this, and many of them even my friends, I'd call them, have motivated me to, even after like all the hard stuff I've had to go through and the 3 month break that I had, to be able to still at least want to keep doing this. So that is, I'm talking about Astratale. Um, and I've made a lot of friends through it, and I feel like I should do it some justice and actually finally end the story and yeah, complete what this narrative has been. So sit back with me for a while, maybe like not so long, but I'm gonna tell you the story of Astertail, starting from the last video going onwards. The last video and this video should all be in a playlist, so you can just watch them as the timeline goes on. But now to start. Astratale is a story of two clans. I'll give you guys just a quick rundown of two clans starting a war out of something that is so minuscule that could have been avoided. But the sheer pride of the two factions caused calamity, not for just those two factions, but for most of the server. So now to start off right after the last part. After the last part, there was an armistice at the time. After, I want to say, a year of fighting back and forth, Irontide versus MP and its allies, the most of the Astercraft community helping and serving the Irontide side, which was now winning at the time. An armistice was signed, giving a break for around a month for the races. The race such as Drift City and the other pod races which were made. Now these races had a grand prize of some weird trophy that within that trophy housed artifacts for a map that could direct whichever the winner was to the revival ray, a ray to bring back a lost life. Now in this narrative, every player has 3 lives, 3 canon lives at least. So they have 3 times to die. I've only died once so far. Once. But harnessing this revival ray would allow to bring back even people who've lost all 3 of their lives back. Now, the race between Hunter Gray on the MP side would be really hard to beat, as he was pretty much the builder of most of these tracks. Now, I being the good pod racer person, I would say, I would have to race up against him. This race would take around 3 minutes. It was a pretty fast race, violent race as well, as both were armed with hell blades and mines. It was very hard to dodge as the flames were coming through the floors, and you had to pretty much go through a cave, which was dangerous in its own part, just as you could be flying out, hitting some spikes and destroying your build. Now, after the third lap of 9, by the way, I end up running into Hunter's mines. Now, I do end up going down, however, I do not die, as someone else on the Irontide faction is able to survive till the 8th lap and finally beat out Hunter in the straightaway to win the revival ray. Or at least what was thought of the revival ray. Like I said, this was a map to the revival ray, which leads us to a temple. Now, this temple is guarded by monsters such as the Lurker of Laxia City, which I made a video about. Now, you had to come through a dense jungle to find this temple. You weren't able to take any armor with you. You weren't able to take any heavy guns. You would have to go through there as your own person and try to climb up to the top without dying. Now, this was a feat in its own. Just finding it was a hard time, but having to find the revival ray and try to survive all the monsters attacking you, that was a different struggle. Now, the MP faction was able to track down the Irontide faction to this place, and there the MP faction was able to secure the revival ray before Irontide was. Now, this was right after the armistice. After this was basically another declaration of war. Now, this time, MP had the advantage. They had the revival ray, and they were trying to find the Irontide Redstone Labs Air Fortress, which was a map that I took so long to build. It's a shame I never got to use. But this map was an air map. It was a map where the Irontide defense would have to defend against 5 incoming MP planes and bombers. And by the end of the multiple dogfights, hours of anti-aircraft fire, most of the base was destroyed. This was the first ever MP offensive in the second year of the war that ever dealt a critical blow, as these Redstone Labs were the core force into the Irontide air warship campaign and the special technology that was being made by Irontide at the time. Now, here is where many soldiers died, many on both sides. This was by far one of the largest losses in the war. Now, on to the next battle. This was a ground battle that took so many lives that it was... even I died once. I lost a cannon life there. Now, this battle was fought with tanks and helicopters, an offense from the Irontide faction, with a ruthless defense that was almost impenetrable. This was going to be the final push from Irontide, the final push that if they could win this, they would be able to secure the victory. Now, as the Redstone Labs were destroyed, Irontide was no longer able to produce any special devices of military technology. No more secret warships or special mechs were getting pumped out. What they had was what they had to work with. Now, fighting MP would have also been a mad struggle, as this place was an absolute fort. It was almost impenetrable. And this fight would go on to the final days of the war. Now, to go off on a side note, right after capturing the revival ray, the MP faction had to transport it back, to which they were ambushed by both IT and, I want to say, RA? It was RA and some other clan. It was ambushed by IT, CH, and RA. And it was pretty much a 9v3. It was a 9v3. They were ambushed in Laxia City and absolutely decimated. The amount of numbers that MP was up against, they could not face. It was absolutely terrible. It was a massacre, to which IT was able to capture the revival ray parts and try to secure one more time that they would be able to produce a weapon that could finally end the war. Now, in the final act of Astratale was a 5v5 at the usual 5v5 map, obviously. Held on both sides, had their mascots, had their leaders, Riku on one, me on the other, and all their top players, such as Barbarian Jebediah, Now, this battle was fought with so much force that there was a time where you could say that MP was winning, but then another time you could say Irontide was winning. Either side, both sides at the time, were stuck at a coin flip. Both sides had such immeasurable power that it was just like an impenetrable wall getting hit by the strongest weapon in the world. Now, this final battle ends with the 1v1 between Riku and Astertail. Riku pulling off a really good flank with a Cloud Piercer on Astertail's Phantom 2, as the Phantom 2 is not the best 1v1er and more of an assist build, but Astertail was not able to take that hit, thus shattering his propeller and leaving him pretty much defenseless as Riku was churning out more Cloud Piercer shots. And as this final battle was happening between these two powers, Riku offered Astertail a final time to stop before I lost my last cannon life, to which I denied that and blew myself up, however not taking Riku with me. But unknowingly, at this final battle, the final battle to which Riku and everyone else, not even people in Irontide and the Irontide allies, thought was the final battle, as the mission of this battle was to stop Irontide from launching its nuclear warhead, the World Ender, into space. This was ultimately stopped. However, what no one knew was that there were multiple world-ending warheads, world-ending satellites that were launched into space. These were constructed at the Redstone Labs as a contingency plan by Astertail, that if he were to go out, he would take everyone with him. Now, I want to say these satellites were unnoticed for about a year, until December 27th, I think. December 27th or 26th, where these satellites were finally reawoken and carried out their final mission to eradicate most, if not all, planets surrounded in this Astratale universe, to which barely any remnants of the old society was left. However, although this may be bleak, there were some people were able to be brought back. As using that captured revival ray, Astertail was able to take samples of every person that he deemed that he fought with, that he had a relationship with, and was able to seal that inside of a capsule that reawoke a few months after the devastation of all the planets. Now, these people were able to wake up again with the same memories of what they had right before the world ending happened. And from there, the story ends to what both sides do. The reincarnated Riku, or the reincarnated Irontide and Irontide Alliance, if they continue the fight, it'd be on their heads, no longer Astertail's. Now, this was just like a headcanon story that I made. I'd say maybe a year ago. I had most of it written down, but I wanted the story to be about the way people think, and if what you would like, I guess it's like some play on morality. If what you would want to do over is greater than what someone else wants to do, as Riku took over as leader of Astratale and proclaimed himself as king of Astratale at the time. And he didn't just do it for himself. He did it so that there would be no more clan wars. He did it for order. But there's people who still want to keep their power, who still want to feel important, which such as Astertail, which I started the war. Now, this war bringing lots of loss and the eventual end to all Astracraft servers, as the headcanon states. Was this worth it? Was the war, the struggle, the dedication from all sides worth it? Was the through war, everyone in Astracraft grew. However, through war, everyone Astracraft died. And I just wanted to have you guys think on that. Something a little to think about at night. But yeah, there was a little bit more I wanted to say here, but I think I'll end it at that. As this is the final Astracraft video. I was gonna make a video in itself telling you why this is the final Astracraft video, but I'll just tell you guys right now. It's about time that I've moved on to something new, and obviously it's gonna be a part of this channel. Like, it's gonna be where I started, obviously, but the only way to get onto Astracraft Chinese server is to do some weird stuff. So I'm like, you know, I was gonna make a video of that, but I'm like, I really can't, because it's not like any of you would have an IP address that could channel through like China and have like a phone number as well that's native to it. So I'm like, that's gonna be really weird. So I think here is where the journey of Astracraft ends for this channel, and hopefully there's something new out there, and maybe you guys will stick with me to find it. So yeah, that's about it. See you, nerds.